All right, welcome back to Redneck Rantings. It is Thursday, April the 11th, 2019. We got us a brand new rant as the snow comes down in Minnesota in spring. Thank you very much. If you don't like the weather here, wait 5 minutes, it'll get weirder. So, I've been wanting to do this one for a bit now. Oregon has joined the latest group of states that have enacted that have joined the national popular vote group. So what is this and why does it matter? Well, what this is this is a consortium of states that have voted to give their electoral votes, their electoral college votes, to whoever wins the national popular vote. Why is this a bad thing? We're supposed to be a democracy, right? Wrong. Nope. We are not a straight hands up, hands down, who wants pizza for lunch kind of democracy. We are a republic. Now, the difference can best be summed up in the old joke, a democracy is 3 wolves and a sheep deciding whether or not to have mutton for lunch. A republic is a sheep with a gun contesting the vote. The purpose of the Electoral College is to prevent essentially mob tyranny, or what the founders called the tyranny of the majority, okay? Because whenever you have a straight hands up, hands down democracy, what invariably happens throughout history, and the men who wrote the Constitution saw this firsthand, is that inevitably minority groups wind up getting abused. What happens is one group gets into power, they cement themselves in, and they basically shit on everybody else, all right? Now, maybe you're thinking, this can't happen now, this is the modern age. Oh, really? Yeah, that's really some charming naivete you got right there. This goes directly against what we are supposed to be about. The idea here is that everybody's voice counts. And by enacting a national popular vote, and it may seem like, well, that's exactly what's going on. Whoever votes for the most, whoever gets the most votes win. That means everybody's voice counts. No, it doesn't. Because here's what's going on. Now, leaving aside the fact that this goes directly against the Constitution, and I'm sure that it will face serious, serious challenges if it actually winds up playing a significant factor, as some people believe it will, in the upcoming 2020 elections. Excuse me, whiskey time. Leaving that aside, what we are looking at here is a very overt attempt by the Democrats to subvert the electoral process and basically pre-rig the upcoming 2020 election. The reason I say that is because the majority of states that have signed on to this, in fact, every one that I'm looking at, District of Columbia, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Oregon, New Jersey, Washington, Vermont, California, Rhode Island, and New York, all of these are traditionally very solidly blue states. These are states which typically go to Democratic presidential candidates regardless of what else is going on, okay? And what they are doing is they are forming a voting bloc in order to freeze out the conservative voices. As you all know, Trump lost the popular vote, but he won the electoral vote. The reason he won the electoral vote is because a lot of states went with what their local populace voted. And here's the kicker on that. This is where things differ a little bit between what actually happened and what the Democrats want to happen. In a lot of cases, the popular vote in middle America, like individual counties, individual cities, did go to Trump, and it was enough to sway the electors. And enough of these smaller groups were enough to convince the members of the Electoral College to give their votes to Trump, because that's basically what's supposed to happen. Not necessarily that Trump wins, but that we have 50 individual state presidential elections. We don't have, like I said, just a hands up, hands down democracy. And as a result of this, Trump wound up winning. The Democrats lost their fucking minds, and they had assumed that they were going to win because, let's face it, Trump was a really beatable candidate, and they've been trying to figure out for the last 3 years how this could have happened. And what they've decided is that somehow Trump cheated. No, that isn't what happened. He represented middle America. If you take a look at these states that are doing this, with the exception of, like, say, Hawaii, which is 2,000 miles off of the West Coast in the Pacific Ocean, and Illinois, which is here in the heartland. Most of these are coastal states, very, very high density. Roughly 20% of the votes that Hillary got in the popular vote came specifically from California. So what this national compact would do is it would cause the people in the middle of the country, the less populous states, which traditionally follow a Republican political mindset and tend to be much more traditional family, nation, that sort of thing, ethos, it would freeze them out of the process because, yes, we've got all this land, we've got all these states, but we tend to be, on a people per mile basis, much less densely populated. Whereas someplace like California, for instance, California has 55 electoral votes because it's one state and it's incredibly densely populated. Now, conversely, Illinois, which is in the Midwest, has 20 electoral votes. The next state in general in this compact that can match California is New York with 29 electoral votes. And again, it's traditionally a Democrat state. Very, very small, incredibly densely populated, certainly more people per square mile than, say, Illinois is. All right. So what would happen if this were to go into effect is that the people campaigning for president would effectively ignore the middle states, flyover country where I live, and indeed where the state of Illinois is, and would only focus on those couple few states that could guarantee, that could swing the popular vote in their direction. Because it doesn't matter if you're representing the people in Minnesota as long as the people in California and New York are at your back. All right, it doesn't matter what you do about their concerns because, well, their votes don't count. And that's the problem here, is we're allowing a tiny group of states, a tiny percentage of the overall cities and counties and square mileage of this country to dictate policy to the rest of us, and basically the politicians can just ignore our concerns. And what the Democrats are trying to do is they're trying to rig things so that they always win. Now, I understand that politics is a contest, and everybody cheats. I'm not going to sit here and claim that Trump is squeaky clean. I know in many respects the guy's a fucking scumbag. I'm going to vote for him in 2020 because, well, he's better for the country than anything the Democrats are fielding at this point. Cough, cough, Joe Biden. Cough, cough, scumbag. If this goes through, and if it is allowed to pass, the United States is effectively dead. Okay? The democratic process in this country is over. We will no longer be a republic. We will no longer be a place where every voice matters. It won't matter if you live in Bent Armpit, Wyoming, or New York City. All that's going to matter is actually, it will matter if you live in New York City, because in New York City, you've got more people, more votes. And so the politicians are going to care much more what you think, and they are just going to institute essentially their policies. They're going to institute the Democrat policies because, again, it's states like New York and California that are traditionally that traditionally swing Democrat. And this compact will allow them to ignore the values and the needs of traditionally red states. They won't have to come to places like Iowa or Michigan, which, surprise, surprise, is not on the list, even though Detroit is a Democrat state, is a Democrat city that has been run right into the ground, or any of these other places. They won't have to pay attention to the people in the middle of the country who are the backbone of this country, and they're going to push these failed policies which have turned places like California and New York into literal shitholes, because they won't have to worry about what people in the rest of the country think. This is nothing less than a subversion of the constitutionally mandated electoral process as laid out by the Founding Fathers. This is going straight for the tyranny of the majority, and if this comes into play, I guarantee you that if Trump loses, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. This is going to be challenged on a constitutional basis, and it may be the tip. I mean, and I'm not advocating for civil war. The last thing I want, I mean, I live in this country. The last thing I want is Americans shooting one another over politics. But it may come to that. It may push us over the tipping point. All right? The other concern that I have is that we may wind up with a situation where the Democrats win every single time if we do this, because the more densely populated states traditionally swing Democrat. And if that happens, you're going to look at a country with open borders, socialism as the new government model, and a lot of these failed programs that didn't work in other states, but hey, they didn't work in California, let's roll them across the country anyway. All right? Your voice will cease to matter unless you are going with the Democratic program. This is a very dangerous, very un-American, very unconstitutional process. The one thing we have going for us is the fact that statistically, conservatives tend to outbreed liberals by a significant margin. I believe Dr. Steve Turley said it was something like 2 or 3 to 1. And so in a few generations, we may see a change in the wind. But for 50, 60 years, we are going to see a socialist America. And if you want to look at how well socialism works, hey, go over to Venezuela where the people who aren't starving to death are eating their house pets. All right? And I know I've said that before, but it's true. This can come to no good. And I guarantee you that if Trump had won the popular vote and Hillary had won the Electoral College, we wouldn't be seeing this, because every single one of these states was a blue state that went to her. All right? And if the Republicans tried this stunt, the Democrats would be screaming their heads off. This is another example of dirty tactics on the part of the Democrats, because they don't care about the law, they don't care about the Constitution, they don't care about what's best for this country. They simply care about being in power. And if the rest of us wind up getting disenfranchised, if 150, 175 million Americans get disenfranchised, they simply don't give a shit. Because all that matters to them is they get to hold the reins of power, and it doesn't matter what happens to the country, because they're going to be happy and fat and safe behind their walled, gated communities with private security, not having to worry about those of us actually living out here in the real world. If you are not nervous as hell about this possibility of the Electoral College being subverted in this matter, you really need to crack open a civics book, and you really need to educate yourself on what happens when the political left gets its hooks in and gets entrenched in power in a country. It has happened in Soviet Russia. It happened in Venezuela. It happened in China. It is happening in North Korea. It is never good. All right? Leftism is cancer. It is the death of nations. It is the death of civil liberties. And it typically stacks bodies. We need to stop this. We need to make it clear to our elected officials we are not going to stand for this, and remind them of the true model of government under which we operate. That's all for now. Be well, be safe, be here next time. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button. And again, if there's something that you would like to hear me go off about, by all means, mention it in the comments section. Y'all have a good night. I'm going to put some lasagna in the oven. Take care. Bye-bye.